I'll have to log on to my account.
Okay.
It's just
I'll look at my card. Windows, I'll be back.
Like headache.
Thanks, Joseph. Let me.
Well, she takes her. What they do?
You please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome all to the January 13, 2021 regular monthly meeting of the Washington County Board of Elections. Typically, we'd start with public comment, but I think the whole public is probably here because we asked you to come to kind of capture the public in that sense. So if it's okay with the other board members, I'd like to jump to your portion of it because I'm confident you have other places you need to be and certainly want to be. This is what our maybe third meeting that I can recall as being on this side of the board where we've talked to school officials. We really, at least the past board discussions, we would really like to use schools. And again, we understand your calendars. I've asked the staff to get us dates so that you can calendar these things in. I know other schools are doing it, so I would ask you to call Madison County. I think they use 100% schools. I think Marion may use 100% schools. So I know
Jackson
it's not
County.
impossible. I'm sorry.
Jackson County.
Jackson
is about
County.
100. Yeah,
So again, I know it's not impossible. I know it's probably a large headache and so forth, and you have other headaches to deal with. And so we really would like to add our burden onto you and so forth. We're looking at what we basically have is in a presidential, we'll have a primary that at least at this time, and again, we can't guarantee it because we're not in charge of those dates precisely. You know, there are other factors that work, but the primaries are going to be in May, except for presidential that's in March. And we're pretty good at setting up. I think most of us believe that our setup crews would be able to come in the night before, the day before, I should say, set up, and we can tear down the next day. So effectively, we're sort of going to bother you for 3 days, although there'll only be 1 day where there's active voting and so forth. We don't need to take over the whole school. We would want to talk with each one of you, all of the, where you can kind of tell us that where you think would be best for us as it relates to how's best for you. Keeping in mind that we have a public that is, we have to be concerned for ADA regulations and so forth. So we certainly wouldn't want to put them someplace where they have to go up a set of stairs. We can't do that. And also it probably you wouldn't appreciate having some of the public coming in somewhere and walking down the hallways because that's the ADA door they can get to. Because I could understand concerns about people suddenly being ADA that might not be ADA, and maybe they should hardly be in a school or shouldn't be wandering the halls looking for a child that there's a protection order against. And so we don't want to put you in that bind. So we'd like to work with you about it. Our equipment allows us to be, how would I put it, contained, I guess, smaller areas and so forth. If you voted at any of your local places, we used a gymnasium that was a church gymnasium at the Nazarene Church. And so that probably, and they put all their pews in the middle of the gymnasium because they were redoing their sanctuary. We used, in Beverly, we used the church there, and again, we used, would be sort of their regular, their probably some kind of a large gathering room, likewise about a gymnasium size. We don't need a gymnasium, but I'm just saying size-wise, that's sort of the, again, part of that had to do with COVID, because we had to have, as you probably do, you know, you enter here and you exit there, or exit here, or tried to get some kind of a circular flow. And so as we get away from that, we don't necessarily need quite as much room. Some of you may have what I'll call a narthex area that might work, but on the other hand, that may be in the middle of school traffic and that wouldn't work for you. So again, we're not going to tell you that it has to be here or there. We'd like to just discuss with you what would work best for our equipment and what would work best where we impact you the least. But what it would allow us to do is in part save some of our equipment, and what that does is it lengthens how long we get to keep it. And our last purchase was really mandated by the state. We were basically told this is what we're going to do as far as purchasing goes. We began shrinking, I think it was in 2018, the number of places we voted in anticipation of how much it was going to cost to do this. And probably some of you have already heard, but if you haven't, I think the eventual outlay to the county, which we originally told them could be as high as 1.3 million, turned out to be $10. Now the state forked over money for part of that, or the county would have, but we saved, you know, we were cutting that thing in half and so forth. So again, it allows us to sort of keep some equipment back, because our experience before was that as our equipment broke, God bless the manufacturers of that equipment, don't make replacement parts. So what we did is, again, when we were shrinking, we saved pieces and our staff tore them apart and put this piece into that one so that machine would work. And so Lord knows that may well be again the case as we go down the road. So it allows us to do that. It allows us to have ADA compliant buildings, because you're under the, you know, sort of the same gun as well when it comes to that for the public and for students and staff. So is it something we can work out?
Well, I know at our last meeting, we had talked that most of you make your schedule up or calendar up the first of the year, excuse me, last year. So the dates we're looking at this year. Our primary would be May 4th, 2021, and the general is November 2nd, 21. And in primary 22, it would be May 3rd, and the general would be November 8th. This year is what we call an off-year election. So it's villages, councils, township trustees. We may not even have a primary in every precinct. Right now, we know we're going to have one in Belpre. Belpre Township is putting on a ambulance levy.
Yeah, fire and ambulance.
And was there Cutler?
Decatur is supposed to, but they haven't turned in yet.
Okay. So they have until February 3rd for that. Now
Those are both mine.
2022 is gonna be a gubernatorial year. That'll be another big year.
But again, our primary will be in May.
It'll be in May.
Now, would your expectation be that schools closed?
Well, in the
Because
past,
we've
that's what
already-
we have been, that's
We've
what
already
they've told us.
We've already built our calendars.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I mean,
And if it can't be done in 21, you know, we just want to start these conversations because
We just
our
wanna do it in
association
earnest.
has lobbied Ohio General Assembly to call it a holiday.
So, but
schools-
to go back to this question, what's the answer? You expect school to be closed?
No,
No.
it's whatever works. for
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
I have a place that, it's in the November's gonna cause issues, but that's okay, we can make this work. I have a space that is, it's our big gym on 339, which it's ADA compliant, we can rotate people through if you can't circle back and to avoid that, what we did this time. We can do all that, restrooms and everything else, but, that's what, if the expectation we have to close school, that makes it a big difference. My other question would be, even with the area that's somewhat isolated off the rest of the school, what type of security is going to be provided if we have school? I mean, even though, just what you said, we have a small handful in my district of parents we have to keep an eye on, or people.
We've got a few more.
I can't designate somebody, it's gonna make it a little bit tougher for us to designate somebody to keep somewhat of an eye on that. And then if that person gets within the area, necessarily if we have, what I'm thinking is Washington County Sheriff's Office gonna help us. Can you?
It's the one time of the year the sheriff, for lack of a better phrase, works for the Board of Elections.
Okay. Because my thing is, if I have a deputy or two in that area, we're okay with it, with having students.
Right. Yeah.
And they have
Well, again,
access
that would be
to
our
the
effort to
classrooms
try
from your
to
gym.
assist you, because we don't want you to, if you want to close, if you're over,
I don't wanna
I'm just saying overtime.
That's the
I'm just
bad
saying,
word right now.
overtime, if things morph into, teacher-student conference, I'm just saying, that's not gonna impact us one way or the other. But we would want to work with you. At one time, Little Hocking Elementary, we were there. The difficulty was that our only parking was where the teachers parked. And so that meant small parking. Well, there was another parking area and people used it, but it required then that they walked through the school. In one particular election, nobody mentioned to us they were locking the steel gate so that they couldn't walk through. And so we ended up leaving there and so forth, because it was going to be an impossibility. But we've kind of circled back to this, that we need to do it. We know other jurisdictions are doing it. And so there's got to be a way that apparently we can work these things through.
If I can,
So again, we don't want to tell you what to do. We want you to just come along board and assist us.
if I can stay open and have enough notice, I'm sure we can make that work.
Yeah.
I just need to know how many sites you need for Marietta. Are you talking about one?
One.
Okay. Our high school would be the biggest and most accessible site. I could have staff park on the other side of the building, and you could have that lot on this side of the gym. There's a ramp for accessibility. It's a big space. A PE class they'd figure it out that day.
Yeah.
And the parking issue would just be the one day,
Yep.
not the 7 days, tear down days.
Yeah.
just election day.
With our equipment moving in, that's just the truck. They're not gonna use the parking. They're probably gonna wanna pull as close as they can, just so they can walk the.
It might also be an opportunity for some of our kids to learn a little more about that. You may be able to gather some more volunteers to help. I don't know.
Right. We love the
There'd
youth
be
of the
opportunities
booth
for
program that we've used, because we think it's a great opportunity to introduce young folks. And frankly, our older folks love the young folks. They enjoy the conversation, the time together, and trust me, they enjoy the fact that young people are not intimidated by any of this new equipment we have.
I think Doug brought up a good point about security, and that having extra eyes there and a presence would be really important.
Right. So we would definitely be talking with the sheriff in anticipation of doing this, explaining that these are the concerns, and that having someone that can be available tends to be one of those, it just discourages the person, because as soon as you show up and you go, oh, well, that's the end of that.
But I think in like some schools, I'm thinking Frontier particularly, we would probably use both New Matamoros and Newport. I don't know if taking them out to the high school, if that makes sense. But I think in some cases, we're gonna be looking at your elementaries too.
We may, because again, my theory is that if you're in that school district, at some time you've had to drive there and drop off a child, pick one up, go see an event, whether it's in the gymnasium, auditorium, or wherever. So, because again, we do want to limit, how many buildings we're coming to. We'd like to kind of stay at one.
Right, but also make it
And
convenient
it
for the
could be,
vendor, otherwise not for the vendor.
And we'll probably be discussing with Waterford Fort Fry, potentially, the possibility, do we only need one because you're so close?
You may need one in, Fort Fry, you may need one in the lower area, because you can have
Yeah.
township, but, I know where I voted in Watertown, I think there's 3 or 4 precincts already there.
Mhm.
Palmer, 2 Watertowns, and then there's 2 or 3 at the, St. Burns where they,
Mhm.
Right.
so.
And I think in Warren, as, with the new campus there, that should be able to handle all
So for Warren,
Warren Township and.
so for Warren, the May, like in a couple of months, May, I don't know if we'll be able to handle that just because we're still under construction.
Mhm.
And there's still pieces and parts of parking that probably aren't the best places for parking, if that makes sense.
Well, we're not gonna give up on our existing places until you're kind of ready for it.
Right, so, but next year, the new high school will be open, the elementary will be completed, the middle school will still be under construction for the addition. So I'm thinking that, to consolidate, obviously, we only have one school district or one campus. So if you're thinking about consolidating all of our townships into one location, is that what you're thinking for Warren?
Mhm.
So like even like, Decatur and Belpre and
Mhm.
all those would come to our district campus.
Belpre would probably still stay in Belpre School, city school.
But
This would be probably anything starting Warren District from between Waterford and Warren, and then everything that was at Cutler and Bartlett and Bartlett.
so not using old Cutler School, the community center.
Yeah, we don't use it now. They go to Lighthouse Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Oh, they
So
use
I'm
it at
thinking
Lighthouse.
probably everyone that goes to Lighthouse Baptist then would come.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if that's the case, I would suggest that, starting next year, like next school year, that we would be able to handle this. We can have school going on and we would just use building 6. So we would just use the gym. Building 6 is, separate from the rest of the campus, essentially. It doesn't touch the new buildings. It will have its own parking. It will have handicap accessibility. There's those,
That's the current
But
gym?
yeah, the current.
The current
building.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, the current gym.
okay.
So it would just be the current gym, and then there'll be additional parking lot built around it. That might still not be completed at that point. There'll be demo, but there should be parking that is close enough to get to building 6. And that gives you a whole gym, a whole bathroom, and that's essentially, that's where my office will be. That will be an assembly space. That would be it'd be a perfect place to do something.
Good spot, okay. Well, again, that sounds great, and again, other schools, we can work with you and so forth, because we understand that, again, you have a totally different obligation that we have. And so we want to interrupt it as little as possible. And so forth. We probably would have board members and setup staff at least making one trip there, and we advise you ahead of time. Just to look at electricity, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Mhm.
So that we can kind of plan how we're gonna plug stuff in and where are we gonna plug it, and so that we don't have situations where we have stuff that people can trip over, stuff like that. And so that's another reason why we've been using more of the area, is that we try to put things against walls and so forth, so that we don't have electricity running into the middle of a room. Because again, it's just a place for someone to get hurt. So we want to avoid that. I'm certain you want,
Is electricity good in all of the areas that you're thinking? Right now?
I think there's a way to isolate them from,
To keep them behind the tables.
in our case, we're gonna cover the floor, just like they would cover Van Johnson.
Yeah,
That type of thing, and so, hiding things like that's gonna be something.
we have tons of those, wire cover or
Yeah.
floor covers too.
For us, if we were using our facility, we could make it work. I mean, we could actually make work would be, a very good possibility. That would be actually better to do it the first time there than in November for us.
Okay.
I'd have to confirm with my board, but,
I forget, I have to do that too, but.
Oh, yeah, we're not looking for
but,
guarantees.
yeah, I think it's not our central office, we're just in a kid area, we've got a gymnasium there, and because of that, I mean, we could, if you're doing a primary in March, we could probably try to do a trial on that, if you could get, that would probably be a lot of your end too, because you've got to tell everybody where to go in time or whatever, but.
When do you guys get out this month? Is it mid-May?
May 31st.
End of the May.
A week before Memorial Day.
Okay.
So for Fort Fry, since we have Beverly, we can work with Waterford, and then we have Lowell, would you need Salem Liberty, or would you bring those people in?
My fear of Salem is ADA compliance,
Oh,
and I don't know how,
The parking's not great.
the parking's not great.
It's not very good, but.
I mean, right now we're at Paw Paw Church, and that's not ideal, but
Mhm.
it works, but I keep trying to figure out how we can use Salem. I'd love to use Salem,
Mhm.
but I'm just not sure how, because the classrooms over here, the gym's the one is up on the hill, right?
Right.
And there's no handicap
We
accessibility.
would have to close school at Salem to do Salem.
Okay.
No, we're gonna try to avoid that.
What about
Okay.
Lowell? 'Cause there's no way to really get in there without.
Lowell, I think you could get into the gym though.
Yeah,
We're through that one.
Right, we
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
one door that goes right to that gym, and then we have a gate. So I think Lowell would be okay. And then the high school, I'm sure we could find out something if we don't use Waterford or Salem's the only one I'm worried about.
I just wonder, and we're trying to, because already people are still upset that they've lost their voting locations
Right.
in some areas, so I'm trying to keep no one having to drive 20 miles, so would it make sense that Salem people would go to Lowell to vote?
Would it make sense that there wasn't a school at Salem? So, I mean-
We could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys can say that. And,
We could
we
say
don't
that.
know what's up in the air there, so.
This from a school district that's
One thing
completely
you're gonna have-
consolidated, and it's large.
You've already fought that battle.
You're gonna have people driving that far though with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go, I mean, you're adding 10 more minutes or close to 10 minutes for a Palmer person to get to Waterford Elementary from where they go currently. I mean, you're gonna do that anyway.
It's part of the problem. Again, the solution is that we find that most people end up going to a Walmart, a Kroger, a Giant Eagle, they come somewhere, and lo and behold, the Board of Elections is open. Eventually, as we go through the election cycle, we're open after 5, we're open on weekends, and folks can come and vote.
You guys,
And
do
we're
you have
seeing
a?
more and
I
more
was just saying,
people
do you
that
have a-
vote early.
Mhm.
And we're also with COVID finding that a lot of people have discovered they can do it through the mail.
Mhm.
And the way Ohio's set up, we have a period that if you mail it before election day, we're gonna take it up to, 10 days.
Yeah, afterwards.
Afterwards.
If it's mail.
So that the postal service that loses your envelope hopefully finds it within that 10-day period. So we get them, we open them, we count them. So your vote counts. And so we offer those services to some people and say, I know it's not quite the same thing as going to the location, but you are still voting.
Mhm.
And as younger people are getting used to this sort of thing, we're going to have that age group, my group, sort of, dissipating. And so I think there'll be less complaints about, well, we're not doing it the way we used to do it back in the 60s, the good old days and so forth. But not everything in the 60s was good. So we'd like to think that, again, we offer everyone the opportunity as possible to vote. So we do know people are gonna have to drive, and we already have them driving, and we've already heard about it.
But even though we had 12,000 people come through this building to vote early, all of our voting locations still were fairly busy throughout the day.
Yeah.
The board went to all of them on election day last year, excuse me. And they were still steadily busy. So there still are people that feel very strongly about voting on election day in their voting location. I think with the schools, it's gonna, you may find even more people that will do that. So.
All right, do you have other questions for us, concerns? If not, we'll move on to our next agenda item and let you folks go. And again, we can talk on an individual basis, and certainly you can call us, whatever. Tell us, hey, we looked at this, there's suddenly a problem, or we're thinking about doing this, or the board has wondered about this. And, we'll work with you. But we do thank you, because we think in the end it's going to be a service to the county, and we're going to be good stewards of the equipment and the money we've been given to try to lengthen their lifespan and so forth in this world that, as you know, your equipment, it's a big expense, a big budget item.
There won't be any you won't have any expectations of storing that in between elections.
No, we'll take care of the storage. Again, it's kind of, so much of this equipment, we have a storage area, has to go through all kind of testing. And so forth. A lot of it's under double lock and key. So we would, there were certain items we used to store, like bases and things, rudimentary, all our orange cones and stuff. And we've been trying to get away from that so that we have it, so we just put it on a truck and it shows up for one day, and then we don't have to worry about the possibility somebody said, oh gee, I need an extension cord. I think there was one in the tub. And then they took it, which is fine, but they just kind of forgot to bring it back, and then our guys show up and they're missing the most important extension cord they needed, et cetera. And so they're up in arms. So no problem there. We won't require that.
Also, I want you to think about it like bus schedule, if where a facility we use that we're not interrupting. We don't want to interrupt your day any more than we have to. The only other thing I have before you leave, we have these beautiful voting booths that we no longer use. And some other boards of elections are interested in them, but we thought the schools might be. So we have one set up right out here. We have about 160 of them.
Yeah, total.
That
I think
we
about
don't
150 that we can.
Yeah.
Worthing County 1 in 10.
So if you would like to use them, I know one principal, Warren, said that would be great for testing. If somebody needs, to have some private time or, non-uninterrupted testing, you can use them for that. You can use it for your homecoming or student council or whatever. But we will gladly hand them over to you.
Yeah, because if not, we're ultimately getting rid of them because we need the storage space. Talking about this too long, and I said, we gotta do something.
Yeah.
So if you'd like them, let us know how many you need,
And we can get them out.
and we will get them out. We'll make you come and get them, we'll take them to you, and so.
So I'll let the.
Again, a voting experience for a young adult, or, well, a soon-to-be young adult, where you say, hey, this is the voting process, you get used to it, because we'd love to have you vote every time the government calls an election.
I'll talk with my board at our board meeting, the 25th.
That'll be great.
Okay.
And as soon as you let us know, as soon as I hear from the board, we'll let you know as well. We'll just move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Our filing deadline is
What's that?
February 3rd, so we'll know by then.
Yeah,
then
what
we
primary
have an election.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I said, as long as they don't say
oh, all right, folks. Minutes.
Yep, there's a copy.
I saw it, and I think they were emailed to us earlier.
Yes, they have.
And I'll be honest, I read them, but I didn't read them for grammar or commas or.
All right.
I think everything looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes and brings us to Bill.
Before you go to bills, I did want to show you, we got, we had pointers here last meeting
Yeah.
to talk about the Zoom. And this is the quote that they gave us
I think
from pointers.
Yeah, 2 of one and 1 of one, right?
Yeah.
2 small ones, 1 big one, for lack of a better way.
After talking with Ryan, who was here from RBN at our last meeting, his suggestion, because he's like a guru on this stuff, he said his suggestion would just to be the one that would be in here, and that everybody can get the app, the Zoom app, either on their phone or desktop or iPad, tablet, whatever, and just go with that if we wanted to go that way. But he didn't think, and I'm wondering as well if we needed to actually have the other units and just do the mobile cart thing, if that's the way you would like to go.
I don't see the need for the complete video conferencing
Yeah.
tabletop stand.
Yeah, that's. Now, we are completely, do we have any grant money left, Mandy?
We have, HAVA, but I'd have to see if this would qualify for me to send to the HAVA. But we do have it, the CARES, they wanted any money back we hadn't spent from
Yeah,
CARES.
we had to send it back.
So we had to send that back, which that's one of the things. It's on there as a bill because there was a check written for it, but of course that wasn't really, that was just a
That's just
sending
a
money back
return.
to them,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, part of what I was thinking is that I agree that it seems like the 1 unit could also be used as a Zoom meeting if you're gonna do, some education
Training.
and training,
Mhm.
where you have people come in on the Zoom, and that one screen allows you to see everybody, because you got it here, your, the home base and so forth, and you can take people through stuff. And again, with the cameras being, their clarity is, you
Mhm.
can bring it up, you can bring the equipment, you can, for lack of a better phrase, zoom in on
Yeah,
whatever you're doing. As a matter of fact, the court system, which is probably what they're talking about, when you talk, it zooms in on you.
Just automatically.
Yeah,
oh, it
because I'm
automatically
sitting
does.
there as a judge and they're kind of showing a large swath of the courtroom. But when I open my mouth and say, this is case such and such,
It zooms to
it
you.
comes into that voice.
Wow.
So again, that would be a situation where you're showing stuff and then you could move over to a piece of equipment, say something, et cetera, and it's coming in where you get.
That would be very helpful as we're revamping our training for poll workers.
Yeah.
And so would that be the 5385?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a fairly major purchase, and I'm not trying to put it off, but we've had a long history of trying to have all 4 board members present when we do something like this,
Okay.
and I know Charlie can. I'm certainly in favor of it. I think it would be wise. It looks like, I was looking at our new budget, looks like we'd be able to find room there.
Yeah,
If
we
we
should
can't
be
use the
able to.
HAVA money, but if we can, or a portion of it,
Mhm.
that would help us as well. But I would just ask if we could just wait until
Okay.
we have Charlie here so that we can all weigh in on it.
Right, okay, good.
I'm not here.
I'm trying to find you.
So we have, poll worker expenses, that's from,
November.
Yeah, that was some people, they didn't sign the poll worker sheet, but then they called in.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. We've had some
They were,
stragglers.
yeah, you said they were all new people, didn't you?
Yeah, and that's again goes back to the training. We just need to, that was my first live election too, so we just need to get the system down better so people understand it.
So this is 4 people?
Yes. Well, one of them, that 354 had, 2 or 3 people in there. 120, 150 times.
3, 4, 5. So there were 6 people?
Yes.
Was the 30450 more than one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one would have been.
So at least 2 or 3, so
Yeah.
we probably had then 7, 8.
Well,
9
some of them
people.
didn't have their paperwork back into me, like the OPERS form and their W-9. I'd really like to work with auditing and within the courthouse and try to get that paperwork down better. And if somebody, I know they have to sign it yearly, but I don't know if the W-9 is good.
The W-9 to me should be good until they have any changes. like
Until they,
address
yeah.
or, you know,
I mean, it's not
something.
like their social security number changes or anything like
Right.
that, so. But yeah, it was a lot of paperwork this time with
Well, I think the other.
213
Yeah.
poll workers.
But we need to come up with some kind of maybe a spreadsheet or something
Yes,
so that you know that before we transition to January, that you jumped on these people in the month, in December.
Which the first 2 numbers there, the 354 and the 121, were paid from the 20 last year's.
yeah,
budget.
20 is last year's money.
But the 203 and the 304 were paid from this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
budget.
right, okay.
So it's kind of half and half.
So, okay, well, that's a little better, all right. That's true, because we haven't met,
And then like on here too, the 764 for Rundeck and the 16,000 there from RBM, those were paid from our money of last year too. And actually, so was the Sudden Link. And the one quill. So really only the quill for the 113 was from this year. So they came in like after the last meeting,
right,
but in time enough that we were able to pay for last year's budget.
okay. So, in a sense, this approval of the bills are bills we already paid,
Basically,
Yeah.
yes.
which is
Except for
kind
that
of
one quill.
an interesting
Yeah.
approval system.
Yeah.
I know, I thought that too, but.
On the other hand, it.
We're ratifying.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, you gotta get something quick.
Yeah, you gotta pay.
I know I kept running in and signing stuff.
I know,
was like, oh, could you come back in? We found another one.
Yeah, another one came to mail or.
So, yeah, I knew we were running around here trying to take care of
Mhm.
this. But again, it worked out. And to the extent that we need RBM run back and those people to like us,
Yeah.
want to take care of us. Okay, so those are the bills, and the last one, as you point out, that's really not a bill so much as it's a return. So that was grant money that we had to
Yeah.
take care of.
The state had to return it to the federal government by the end of the year, so they wanted it back as soon as possible there.
Right. So can I have a motion to approve the payment of these bills?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. right, we have some correspondence you wanted to go over.
We've got, we got a couple directives. The first one there, the 2020-25, was for the United States Elections Assistance Commission, or the EAC. Each year, or well, not each year, on even numbered years, we have to do a survey to them. It goes, the federal government. And we have to do an annual expense of the board, which is part of that too. There's a copy of, we have already submitted the EAC survey. There's a copy in your packet there. And they actually made it easier for us this year than previous years. We didn't have to type in quite as much information, so that one. So this thing made it easier for us this time. But that has already, it had to be submitted by this Friday, and we sent it in on Monday.
And this is done every other year, you said?
Yeah, on even numbered years. So it covers 2 years worth of information. So it covers from between October 10th of 2018 to October 5th of 2020.
And this is the.
Yeah, so you can see, total registrations received in that time was 11,398. And then it breaks it down into how many of them were new, the pre-registration ones that list there are people that are 17-year-olds. How many were duplicates, people were already registered at the address they put in their registration. The invalid rejected would be if somebody forgot some information and didn't fill it out completely that we had to have. And then change of name and address changes, there was almost 4,000 of those. And then it kind of breaks it down where they came from, what agencies they were from. And then there's also a section that's confirmation notices that we sent out to people. And that tells you how many we sent, almost 6,700, or 5,782 was the total notices we sent out in that 2-year period. And 3,722 of them never came back at all. And then it tells you how many people were deleted during that time. And we had almost 5,000 of those, 4,838. And we did, there's another agenda item for it, but we did a mailing in September last year before the election. Just it was good. They called it a last chance. Now they kind of changed the name a little bit, but to remind people, if you don't fill this out or vote in this November election coming up, you're going to get deleted. So we ended up deleting 592 people in that. They didn't either respond or vote. And it lists on there a breakdown of our poll workers, the ages, some age groups on the same page. And they asked what kind of voting equipment we use and what we use it for. So it's interesting information. And Triad has a report, the way, because we have to code things in a certain way when people register and vote. And then we can pull a report through Triad that gives us this information so we can fill out this survey.
So for the most part, it's stuff that we're accumulating into some system, and then you can ask that system to give it back, and it'll be it's all added up, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Are these, the poll workers, is that from the last 2 years, or is it?
Yeah, it was between that October of 18 and October of.
So that's, some of those are double numbers then. Well, I don't know.
That's what was on the report from Triad.
I'm just wondering, because
I mean,
those
that
who
might
worked
have been,
in November of November of 19 also worked in November of 20. Were they counted?
I would say they were not counted twice.
Okay.
I would say they were not. I would say it was just some people didn't work again.
I know it says 337, but I bet they picked up subs too.
It might have picked up
And
subs too.
I put subs, people that have signed up to work but never worked because they didn't get the training or they didn't, so that number might still be in here too.
All right.
Or
Well,
it might
again,
be-
what it, obviously, the one thing it does for us, if nothing else, it gives us a little bit of, a quick look at age groupings. and so
Yeah.
forth about
Yeah, that's
what we're
interesting.
doing.
I was glad to see that, yeah.
And frankly, it's good to see that that 41 to 60 group is rather large.
Yes,
Yeah.
And the 26-40 is at least somewhat substantial.
Well, I'm
And so
thinking
forth,
18 to
which is
25.
very, promising for the future.
At least it's.
Yeah, the young ones
That
out
we're
there.
able to find folks. And again, that's another thing, if we go to schools, may help us there, with the sheer numbers that we need.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And may open up more of our youth at the booth too, which will be helpful for youngsters.
And then there's a copy of that directive too, if you want to look at it later. And then, the 2020-26 directive is for appointments to the Board of Elections, which Dennis's term and Charlie's term will be up in March. So each of the parties needs to, vote to recommend them again or someone else, or, to vote on a candidate.
Does the Republican Party meet to do that for Charlie? Because I have to submit this by February 16th.
We'll make sure we have a meeting.
Okay.
We should be meeting.
Because I know we're in the process.
Here.
Dennis already filled out his paperwork, so I can email that paperwork or take it down to Charlie and slip it in his door.
Yeah, I emailed it to him yesterday.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
But
good.
he said he might come up here next week
Okay,
to fill it out.
okay.
So,
Did you let him know we need a resume as well?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, actually, he already seemed to know that. So.
Oh, good. This is in his first review.
Yep. He said he had it saved from last time.
No.
So, and then we do have to, which I have it down in there, we don't have to schedule it this time because we might want to wait for Charlie, but we'll have to schedule a reorganization meeting in March. And it had to be, I think, between the 2nd and the 6th.
Yeah.
Of March.
Yeah, it's just really early, just fascinating.
Yeah, so our March meeting will have to be earlier than normal.
Right. Yeah, which I think has always been.
Yeah, for these guys.
Right.
Um,
Okay. All right, so we're on top of that. We're in good shape, and then,
Then there is, the proposed changes to the elections official manual. They just always, anytime the Secretary of State always puts that out for public comment, so it's just so you'd be aware. There's a copy of an email, but you can find that on the Secretary of State's website if you want to go on.
and it seems to me in my past memory of these, a lot of this is driven by the director, deputy director making comments
For the changes.
for the changes and
Yeah.
so forth about, did you think about this because what you're proposing didn't work well, or it begs a question about, well, if you do that, what happens
Yeah.
there?
Or if any law changes too.
Right.
That can.
Yeah, would impact it and so forth. So,
So the 2-week period is, it says for each chapter, they run succinctly then, obviously, we're not waiting.
I
2
think,
weeks.
yeah, it's not like 2 weeks separately.
I didn't know if we needed to, since it's asking for public comment, should we put this out on our social media? Or is it more?
well, you can, sure, yeah,
Okay,
it's not gonna hurt.
Just, yeah.
Because
just
again,
put the
perhaps a poll worker looking
Just
at it
post
would
the
go,
link.
oops.
yeah,
proposed
You know,
changes.
more eyes catch the oops before we have.
well, I thought I'd send it to both chairs,
Yeah,
and if they wanted to share it with their members
People.
as well.
cool,
Yeah.
yeah. The more information we disseminate.
Well, I
the
think
better off
that's
we look.
what I think.
Okay, so we're up to business, and I think we took care of number 1,
And kind of number 2.
and number 2, and number 3. And then we were talking about Decatur and Belfry, right?
Yeah, which Decatur has not turned in their, their levy yet. But Belgrade, already has. But Decatur had called and they wondered if they could have the election either at the, instead of at the Lighthouse Baptist Church where they vote at, if they could have it at the Cutler Community Building or the Decatur Community Building, which is near where the old Decatur Chapel Church, which we used to vote there at one time. I don't remember the Decatur Community Building, but the Cutler Community Building is the old school.
It's about to go.
But we're still talking about using a school in May.
Right, or we may want to, right. So they were supposed to send us a letter, Decatur Township was about, but they never gave us any letter yet about using one of these other locations.
But they likewise haven't made a final decision right?
Right, they haven't
On
even
their
turned in
levy.
their levy yet, yeah, which they don't have to till February 3rd, but
Right.
they haven't turned one in.
And what is our date for telling the voter?
They have to know
I think
30
it's 30
days.
days.
Is it 30 days
Yeah.
before?
Yeah,
So that's being sometime in
As to
April,
location.
change in location, if it's, yeah.
if it is just Decatur, my feeling is, because they were another group, I understand that wanted to keep theirs,
Yeah, that when they have their polling.
have their
location.
polling place. I mean, why make them drive all the way to Lighthouse?
I don't have a problem. Would they otherwise be at Warren?
If this works, but I thought I understood the superintendent to say he wasn't ready for.
Well, yeah, but
for
that was
May.
my point.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if we could go, Mandy and I can go out. I'm not sure I've ever been to Cutler.
Yeah, I've been to that.
So I need to go
Community
out there
Building
and
before.
look at it.
And it's
Right.
not,
It's not a small place.
It
yeah, I
is,
mean, it's not too
It's
bad.
not bad.
No, we
Okay.
we used it for a little while before we went over to
This
Lighthouse.
is a big open space.
parking's good.
Parking's decent.
It was, yeah, I mean,
It's
it'd
not
be
a
good enough for,
dedicated parking lot.
Yeah,
I mean, for them, for that. This is-
For
Okay.
a primary, it'd be okay.
It's not going to be a big,
no,
Right, it's not
For
gonna be a very,
primary, I think it would be all right. If we won't be able to have Warren, what I wouldn't want is to, allow them to vote there and then move them to Warren in November,
yeah,
kind of
But
go
if-
back and forth.
Yeah, so if
you
Warren's
know.
not available to us, then we could accommodate them this time.
yeah,
yeah,
The understanding that we're probably gonna go to Warren.
yeah, that
Right,
this
that
is what's
this is
coming.
not,
Yeah.
right.
And I think we want to let the folks at Lowell, as well, because they may get into this and so forth.
And me not
You know,
to, yeah.
changes and so forth.
yeah.
Um, All right, that works.
As far as
And then-
Belgrade, all city council seats are up, I understand.
Yeah,
So they're gonna have a primary.
but they haven't, we haven't had enough petitions turned in yet, that cause a primary yet. So, but they still have time till February 3rd, so I mean, we won't really,
So you're thinking there could be a primary just based on what you know, that we're gonna have some competition among
I think
seats?
so.
There's been a slew of people from Belfry come in.
there has to be more people
I mean,
from.
more than
we
I
can
think,
say.
I don't know what's happening
The
in Belfry, but
municipality
definitely
or the
excited.
township?
The city.
So if we're doing the city of Belpre, would we still be doing Porterfield?
Well, that's what we probably need to talk, because Belgrade Township, has already turned in, actually, I have theirs here.
Yeah, we know that they're gonna go, yeah.
So, which is what Porterfield, because that's the Little Hawking Precinct and Rockland West. Go to Porterfield, which is Belgrade, those are Belgrade Township people. So,
So Rockland West is part of Belfry Township too?
yeah. Yeah, both the Rocklands are,
Okay,
so. But, so we might want to have them open too, and that's what we'd have to decide if we want, or if we want to make them go into, to the Church of Christ in Valkyrie. But,
And why wouldn't we use the school?
Well, and we can, yeah, I mean, if he says it's available, then we
But I
could
think he
use it.
said, I think Belper said
Yeah.
it would work. He just
Yeah.
needs to
He
get
said he
board
just needs to
approval.
check his board.
Were they gonna be doing their administrative building? Is that what I heard? Because there was a gymnasium in it?
Yes.
I thought that's what he said.
Is that the old elementary one?
Is that like stone?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Stone Elementary.
Which we did vote there.
We have to remember the one thing about Stone Elementary, if that's where I think it is. It's not great parking.
No, there isn't.
It's parking that's excellent for an administrative building and that you park going toward the building.
Yeah,
But on the other side, it's dirt and trees. And our concern was that when we voted there, mud,
I know.
when it rained,
Mhm.
the cars would sink in, dig in, and so forth. One, causing a problem, and two, the voters going apoplectic about, marching through mud.
Yeah, tracking mud into the.
So we better take a look at
Yeah,
that,
we'll take a
because
look at
the
that.
issue could be though that back then they had something going on and they didn't want us on the other side of the building, and there may have been parking there.
And maybe they could have paid.
Because we've had basketball tournaments there, and I'm trying to think.
So I'm just of the opinion, if we could just get good parking, because Belpre is a well-attended voting location.
Oh, yeah, it's
Those
busy.
folks, come out to vote.
Yeah, they do.
And, so we want to make sure that we have enough parking and so forth, and parking to accommodate the, poll workers and whatnot. So they can get, in and out, and by the same token, not be taken up the, up front spot.
And I do have, I don't know if you guys want to look over or vote on their, language for their levy yet. I submitted it to the Secretary of State, but have not heard back yet from them.
And this is for an ambulance?
On top there. Yeah, it was for, I think it says the purpose there is in bold. It was,
It's an additional tax levy,
yeah, it's a new one.
providing and maintaining ambulance service, emergency medical service, or both, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They were wanting to hire, or have hired permanent, people to man an ambulance, or, if people call for help.
Yeah, that it's not a volunteer.
Right,
that
because they were having trouble getting volunteers, and.
Okay. Well, historically, you've looked at it. Does it
Yeah.
track with all of our other additional tax levies?
Yeah, everything, I mean, they provided everything that we needed, and everything matches up.
Right.
Now, they do have to pay since it's a.
It's a chargeback system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's money that'll come out of their tax revenue, and they get,
That they pay us.
yeah,
And then, this has been one of those payments where we then turn around and give it to the commissioners. It goes back into the general fund. We've discussed with them the possibility of trying to create a chargeback account, where we take that chargeback money and put it into what amounts to like a bank account, so that when we have a sudden need of let's say a Zoom machine or whatever, we don't have to go to the county commissioners and say, hey, can you cut us a check for this? We'll just take it out of our chargeback account. But what that does is they don't have access to that money if they wanted to spend it, because the sheriff needed a new computer or something. So some counties have chargeback accounts for their boards of election and others don't. And so we've discussed it, but obviously we haven't discussed it with the new board of county commissioners. So that may be something we'd be discussing, et cetera, but that's kind of the chargeback system and so forth. And then sometimes it's a pretty good chunk of change.
yeah, and this time we can charge back more this year, so they'll have to pay for more things than like last year if it was on an even number year when you're having an election anyway. Because otherwise, Belgrade Township would not have an election for this primary, except for this levy that they're working on.
Okay, so can we voted our next one as far as Porterfield, Belpre location, et cetera? Is that something we have to take care of?
That's, I mean, if you want to wait till we hear from the schools, maybe and then
Well, I
decide,
figured it would be good to hear. And
Yeah.
we could make a
so we can wait on,
full decision.
yeah. And then especially for the Decatur one, you know, till we make sure they turn it in.
Okay.
And then you've got there the budget numbers.
Yes, it was interesting, to say the least.
So,
I was talking with the staff. I think what we originally proposed, well, no, what we originally had before us was 540,000 and change.
I think so.
And after we got done looking at it, saying, gee, we could do without, we were down to about 516 or something.
Yeah.
And they gave us 543, God bless them.
Don't talk about it too much, just move on.
I just said to the staff, we will be good stewards.
Well, I figured that,
Yeah.
I was like reading the paper,
We'll be good stewards.
Yeah.
because all the departments except one didn't get what they had asked for. And I'm like, wait a minute, they gave us even more after we cut.
Well, God bless them.
I'll take it.
And again, yeah, but we've also shown an ability to, you know, we don't spend it, we turn it back in. So
Yeah.
we've been good stewards. So along that line, apparently IT is getting 4 new. These are scanners that, what do they all scan again?
They're the ones we each have one on our desktop. They're a Fujitsu brand, and that's what they're gonna buy again is Fujitsu. But we use them for, like Melissa and Emily use them for scanning voter registration forms, campaign finance. And then me and Karen can use them for those things too, or we've also used them for like, scanning in things like this, levy or anything we have to email to someone, we scan it in with that and email it to them.
Do our copiers not do that?
It doesn't quite do it the same way, the copier doesn't. So, but, we've had, the current ones we've had, have been here at least as long as I have, when I started in 2007. I don't know when, you know, they were bought for the office. But so I know they're at least, you know, from 2007. So I asked IT, and Emily's starting to have trouble with hers. And so they suggested we go ahead and purchase new ones. And we feel them, they have to be, they have to have a certain driver that'll scan into our EVIS programs, and our triad programs. So we have to get ones that actually cost a little more than just a basic one, so it has that compatibility that they can connect together. And, so they were about $929 a piece.
So call it 4,000. Tax title.
So that was they got 3 quotes for us, and that was the lowest quote was like the $929 a piece.
Okay.
They've been very good scanners. I mean,
They
they
have.
lasted this long.
So I imagine these ones, you know, should last at least as long as.
What do we do with the other one?
Well, I think we have to offer it up to other county offices first.
I think we can, yeah. We might not want to Emily since she's had some trouble.
Yeah,
but
if the other
ones
three-
should be, maybe we can.
Right.
Or IT might take them and then
Right.
offer them.
Well, I just was hopeful that we get rid of them so they don't go back into the storage area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're not just sitting around.
Thank you. So you had already mentioned that we had that 592 voters canceled.
And so that was, those, you know, of course, canceled after the election.
Right.
So we made sure that they did not vote.
Oh, do you want to give them, the board an update on we understand our alleged fraud, voter fraud, well, not voter
Oh,
fraud.
yeah, our guy that, well, a lady had, you know, a voter had called in and said she did not register to vote here in Washington.
We sent her a confirmation.
Yeah, well, or an acknowledgement.
And acknowledgement, yeah.
And so she said, she's like, I didn't fill out any voter registration form. So she contacted the sheriff's department. And we reviewed our footage from here from our new camera system. And we believe, her husband did sign the paper for her. And he's been arrested by the sheriff's department for that. So, and I guess there was some domestic violence issues also, that happened before
I
that,
just don't
so.
understand why you would register somebody to vote. I guess it's intimidation, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I mean, he did register her at the correct address and everything.
But he made me sign, and
Where
Melissa
she was
even said,
living.
because you can tell on the tape, Melissa said,
She questions him.
she questions him, did she sign it? Because she holds it up. And obviously, we don't have audio on the tape, but she says, I know, because she remembered talking to him. She said, did she sign this? And he said, yes. But it was one of those days when we had, 500 people in here and
So what does that arrest mean?
Rob, it's,
Is he going to jail?
well,
I would say he was probably put in jail that day he was arrested.
but it's a felony. It says it's a
Her-
felony on the form. If you sign,
Good.
So,
But yeah, you could clearly, see him on the video, because he's sitting right on the other side here at that table. And you see him, he's filled out one paper and then he shifts one under the other. And,
Keeps going.
Keeps
Yeah.
going out and stuff, So.
So,
he lives in Athens County now, but they might
so
understand.
did you think that his ultimate goal was that he was going to vote twice? I mean, if you don't know you're registered, i.e. the wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had moved apparently from Athens County to here, because she was registered to vote in Athens County, but she hadn't transferred her registration here. So I don't know what he thought he was gonna, maybe he thought he was being helpful to her, I don't know.
Is that before or after the beating?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
He was trying to make up for the beating, I guess,
Exactly.
I'll be helpful in registering,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they've had issues.
So you folks may be called as witnesses.
At least Melissa might.
If you go that far.
And it did end up, it was October 30th. It was our busiest day of the year. We actually had over 800 people come in and out of here that day, so.
Very good. Okay, well, thanks for that. Pay raises.
Yes, if you would want to vote on them, I believe I put a copy of what the amounts would be in the packet somewhere.
I saw something.
Oh, it was towards the end there, next to where the hours of vacation, so.
Right here.
It's 2%.
Yeah, so it was, I got double checked with Ben from the commissioner's office, and he said the commissioners had gave a 2% raise countywide. And so they put in if you look at our budget numbers, there's a discretionary merit line item, and that's where they put the money in for that, so we can transfer it over into our salary line item. That was $3,700.
As per this,
Yeah, so there's what each of our current hourly rate is, what the 2% amount would be, the new hourly rate, and then how much it changes it per week. And then the total for the year. Well, per pay period, not per week. It's 2 weeks, yeah. So there's 26 pay periods in a year.
right.
So this would cover, if I figured it out, it would change it a little less actually than the 3,700 per pay, for the year. So it would be covered.
Right. So we're within budget. is what
Right.
we're
Yeah.
getting at. Okay.
Should I make a motion to accept the 2% pay raise?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? So you go ahead and utilize your form there and alert.
Oh, I might
Auditor.
I might need to make up a letter.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can do that real quick before we go. And then you
I
can
won't leave
sign it.
without signing it. That'll work. Then we just are keeping track of vacation and that flex time again.
Yeah,
Are we
Which will
knocking
come
it
over-
down some?
Yeah, well,
or-
come over Christmas and stuff, that did lower everybody's vacation in the flex comp.
Yeah, but,
So we'll all need to pick us some time to
right, yeah, because I think
head
we're,
out for a little
yeah,
bit.
because if I'm correct,
Maybe not Cameron
Emily's
quite
got
as much
almost
as everybody else, but-
540 hours.
Yeah.
So you divide that 40 into that, it goes once,
Yeah, so we all have quite a bit.
yeah. I mean, that's over 2 months. Mhm. Closer to 3.
So hopefully this year will be a good year then.
Yeah, as much as we can.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, the gubernatorial race tends to ramp back up as far as the amount of, things going on with the early voting and-
Right.
and so forth in time.
Yeah, because we'll be urban more then.
Right.
And this time, I didn't put, I don't think, a copy for you in there, but our hours that will have to be open for this primary election coming up in May, the first 3 weeks, we're just open 8 to 5, our normal hours, Monday through Friday. Then the last week, we have to be open 8 to 7 each day through the week. And then Saturday, 8 to 4, and Sunday, 1 to 5. So we're just open one weekend and just 1 week of later hours.
And that's early vote.
Yeah, for the,
And our understanding is, Jobs and Family Services are gonna start their remodeling of that other room probably in the next couple months. So I don't think there's gonna be a problem using this room for early voting, especially if it's just Belfry Township and Decatur.
right, and even if it's Marietta City. and-
Even if it's Marietta City, it shouldn't be, but we do need to consider where early voting is going to be in the future with a larger election.
Which they are supposed to put in back here next to our storage in the back, by where the gate goes back there. They're supposed to put in a training room in there. They were gonna make this one offices because they wanted windows. But back here, they were gonna put a training room, so potentially, depending on when that's done, we can use that if they, allow us to. So we'll
Well,
have to
again, that's
see.
the if
Right,
part of it.
so,
Um,
but that's I guess at least a possibility.
Again, we've batted this around just a few times, like in the past and so forth. Yet, one of the things we could do to perhaps put more voting locations, I guess, in this room will be to look at those stand-up, 3-sided, 2-sided, 4-sided voting booth systems they have that are sort of circular,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a machine, and you got sides. And we'd have to find out what the, I guess, square footage of each,
Yeah.
what
make sure the
is,
machine
what
fits.
they say you need square footage in order for voters to vote. And how many of them can we put in here, this room, if in fact we're going to have a season or two or forever not have that available?
Mm-hmm.
Just not gonna be there.
Right.
No matter where it is, we won't have access to it.
Yeah, this was one of the downsides of not having the conference this year, because I was hoping to meet with some of the vendors and look at those. We can go through, we have gotten several catalogs and kind of look in there. The only thing, I don't see us changing a whole lot as far as social distancing and everything for
Yeah, it depends
primary.
on that.
So even if we had something like that, I think we could only put 2 people even if it accommodated for
Right,
in those.
well, I'm thinking of, going forward,
Yeah,
Hopefully in the future.
but I mean, something to look at or something to talk to the good folks who made these. Could they actually construct something if they, sort of had a notion of what we're looking for? The other thought I've had is that if we could clear out as much of the IT room of things that we don't need anymore. And then take copiers, put them in there. Can we put some voting, if we had to, out there along the wall?
Which we could maybe fit at least a couple.
At least, I'm just thinking if you can find two, that's, then the other possibility is to look at our area that is non-secure. And would there be a way of taking to the left or the right as you walk through into it and turn that into voting area? And again, a temporary voting area, but nonetheless a voting area. And that we could use, especially if we had when we're having an 800 person day. If we're having a 25 person day,
Yeah, then we're
no
fine.
problem.
Right.
Or on one day, we don't use much of it until our fellows get all of our equipment out the door, if they're doing it during voting hours. Just saying, for that time period, so they can run back and forth,
yeah.
but then reopen it again if we're having one of those 800 day days. I'm just saying, those are things I think we have to look at, because we best be prepared to use the space that we have.
Yeah. Which I've wondered about which we're allowed to have voting, our early voting off-site at a separate location, so if that's maybe even something we want to
Isn't
look at.
it in the extension office?
I think the extension office is.
Are they still there?
They are, trust me, my wife took Candy there.
Okay,
She
So
does
they
that
are.
every year, because she and the extension people are tight. The other thing that just as a citizen, I'd like to bring up to the county commissioners is, have they given consideration to buying either Kmart or Weezer and Cawley?
To make it like a.
In an effort, and then get rid of Gilman, perhaps. In that Weezer and Cawley is clearly above any water flow. Because I'm not talking about Goodwill, I'm talking about the Weezer and Cawley on top. And whether that kind of open space would allow them to, build in offices. And I was wondering if there was enough space, if they could then take some of their rental places, like the clerk of courts, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, that whole area, and move that into a general area where also the Board of Elections could go. Just as a thought and so forth. Again,
Which
I
maybe
don't know
even
what
better
those
things
prices
would wanna go
are, I
into.
don't know what their budget, cash flow is. But you have two buildings that seem to be for sale. And they both offer a kind of a big expanse, so you really have a chance to come in and configure it the way you'd like to configure it. And I just know that traveling, and probably Kadeen, you've done the same thing, gone to other counties. And sometimes you go to these municipal buildings and you can tell they're now in what formerly was a strip mall. I mean, I've been to a couple of courts that you could tell back in the day were, probably a shoe store and this or that or whatnot. Now it's the county court, municipal court, or whatever, and next to them's the title bureau, et cetera. And so obviously they walked in and I'm guessing purchased it as opposed to just renting it. But it seems like was just a thought I had, in there. thinking about all their activities and stuff. So, anyway,
But you know, we went to,
may try to send them a note on that or something, just as a John Q. citizen, but also you could, you know, we go in one of those and sort of have one-stop shopping for citizens that are doing this, that, or the other thing. But anyway.
I think it was Belmont we've been to was like that. They were,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Muskingum.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of places we've been. There's a couple boards of elections that are like that.
Like part of the complex, yeah. Well, again, it was just a thought, because I just noticed that, I remember that U-Haul or something was thinking about Kmart and trying to get some kind of,
But I think the planning commission shot that.
and they said no. So, could be that's still on the table. The only other thing I scribbled down as a note is, looking at our website, some of our local official addresses somehow disappeared. And so there's no contact information as to how to reach certain local officials. I mean, you can contact the President of the United States and get a hold of the senator. Can't get a hold of some of the local folks. Yeah, it's not in there. It somehow disappeared.
Yeah, even like the township. So it's, I mean, it's our website that we run.
Oh.
Yeah, so I need to call.
And so the folks were gonna talk to Triad, and we're looking at, can we add them? And again, I don't want home addresses,
I was gonna say.
but I'm thinking a township trustee, they gotta have a bill, they gotta get mail somewhere,
Yeah,
so.
they usually have like a town hall.
So, there, but also the county commissioners, they may still have an address at Putnam. Now, I don't know if they get their mail there, or if mail's now
There is
delivered to
mail.
Gelman.
There is mail in the auditor's office for every county department.
Yeah, so I can go in and change their,
So I'm just thinking
Address,
that,
yeah.
and or at least the courthouse number, so that when you get that, you can listen to your options and get them a call, because it's just kind of a service that we provide. And
yeah, that's it.
at one time, they were in there and they're gone, so I don't know, Triad, when they redid something, scooted them out because they didn't have updates, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if you could look into that, that'd be wonderful.
And before you guys leave, I did have, on the certificate for Tammy Bates for treasurer, I messed up on the date I put on there, so.
I've
the
got one last
statement
thing
that was
too.
on.
I've got one other thing.
Mhm.
I had an email from a lady concerned that every remote voting location did not have masks available. So if the people were coming in, they didn't have a mask to give them.
We provided masks,
I did,
so the poll
That's the
workers should have
question.
put them out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
every location had
Oh,
masks.
yeah.
We gave them a whole bin full of PPE.
I will email this lady back and tell her
Yeah,
that there
they
are available.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess if they put, maybe the poll workers didn't put them right out on the table, but if they'd asked, they could have got.
That's all I have.
Yeah. I don't know, you guys went everywhere. Was there masks available? You guys remember?
I don't recall I don't
I haven't
remember
looked for them.
specifically, I thought there were.
But I
Yeah.
saw in some locations, I happened to see them, but I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
get an email from this same lady or?
If I did, I don't recall it. I'm not saying I didn't,
But you also
because I
don't
thought
wanna
there were
just have them
masks.
out so that people will just grab, you know,
Yeah.
if they don't
Yeah.
need them, they're just taking.
Right, just
extra,
taking a
you know,
few,
so.
yeah.
But frankly, I noticed a couple times folks walked in and they tend to be male. And they came in without a mask and didn't seem interested in putting one on.
Yeah, and again,
And
Secretary
again, there
of
was
State said not to-
no confrontation
Yeah,
or anything.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they did what they were told to do.
yeah.
And hopefully we all survived.
I think we did.
We're still, are we still waiting on, I think we're waiting on,
Yeah, we haven't really
Nicole
done.
Coyle.
Well, Nicole sent me
Progress
something and
on-
it was,
Because Allison had it, and then Allison said, well, we kind of let Nicole take care of it, but then Nicole's like, well, I'm kind of their attorney too, so. So I just need to go back and get all of that out.
Yeah, if you'll take a look, the only thing I saw that was clearly incorrect is simply, I think he described our agency, I think using basically the same language as theirs.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're not taking care of children.
yeah.
And so forth. So it would just be, board of elections, to conduct, elections and monitor campaign finance.
Obviously, you saw the
registration of voters.
playground that they put in. I'm a little worried with it being across the parking lot and kids, especially when it gets busy in here, but
They're not gonna go unaccompanied.
yeah.
You would hope.
You would
Yeah,
hope
I would
not.
hope.
Well, you would hope some kid doesn't spring loose and make a wild sprint,
Which they did put a fence around it, they were.
Yeah, and there may be a permanent.
Well, they
fence that
started
they're
working on it, was it yesterday or the day
There is
before?
a fence.
Oh, there is,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
so they, I didn't even pay attention this morning, so.
Yeah.
At least that helps.
So I think we're good. Can we check, calendars?
Yeah, our next regular meeting would be February 10th. That'd be the second Wednesday of the month, if that's good.
I have a telephonic pretrial conference at 9:30.
What time did you say, 9:30?
9:30. Could we move our meeting up to 8?
Could we recess? Is it something you could do here?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
So we
wouldn't
could
take
just
very long.
recess?
That's fine.
This is
Yeah,
your,
that's fine. with me.
Yeah, February 10th,
I'm good.
okay.
Yeah,
Yes, I can do that.
yeah, that's no problem.
Do we want to go ahead and leave it at 8:30 or change it to 8?
Oh, 8:30 is fine.
I think, yeah, we'll be good. Yeah. Was there anything else that anyone had?
No, we need to wait for Charlie on a couple of things,
Right,
so.
Yeah.
so I think we're good. Is there anything else that we all need to sign?
No, I do have one bill.
What about minutes?
Oh,
yeah,
just
we'll
take
need
the
to
one
sign
that you
Can I
have.
grab my minutes and?
Yeah, just grab yours.
Use that?
Because I can send it to Triad.
I said that with such enthusiasm.
We're gonna meet about the-
There they are.
I'm getting together the committee, so I'm looking, because I don't, to begin with, I don't want a lot of people there. But I want like some managers and some leaders. So, but yeah, I need to schedule something for us to have our first meeting if we can.
And that was it. Just that.
Okay. All right, so we're good.
Try to sign that.
All right, so I think we just need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Thank you, thank you. Here's the recorder. Without letting trade secrets out or anything, Kadeen, have they given any consideration, do you know,
I haven't heard them.
looking at any of the buildings?
I've been looking to talk about.
Hi, Glenn. I'll get a hold of
I
you.
would be talking about it.
We'll probably look at something in the next couple of weeks.
You should call it.
Get around.
It's not a great idea to me. It's kind of just.